It's solid, it's impossibly hot, and right now, it's spinning faster than the entire planet around it. Something is alive at the very center of the Earth, and scientists only discovered it exists because of a signal that should have been impossible. We're going to tell you exactly what that is, but not yet. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the ground beneath your feet is the most violent, most powerful, and most mysterious place in the known universe, and why, without it, every single living thing on this planet would already be dead. Before we go any further, where are you watching this right now? Your bed? Your phone on the way to work? Drop it in the comments, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at the floor under your feet forever. Now, let's start from the beginning. Close your eyes for a second and imagine drilling straight down. Not 2 meters, not 10, not 100, straight down. At 30 centimeters, you hit the world most people never see. Thousands of insects, earthworms turning the soil, roots drinking in silence. It feels alive because it is alive. At 4 meters, you hit history. In 1922, archaeologists brushed away dirt at exactly this depth in Egypt and found the sealed tomb of Tutankhamun, untouched for over 3,000 years. Gold, chariots, furniture, all perfectly preserved in total darkness, total silence, total stillness. Go down to 105 meters and you're standing on the platform of Arsenalna station in Kyiv, the deepest metro station on Earth. The escalator alone takes over 5 minutes. The air smells like metal and something older than anything you've ever breathed. At 4,000 meters, we reach the deepest point where any human being has ever physically worked, the Mponeng gold mine in South Africa. Rock temperatures hit 66 degrees Celsius down there. Without massive industrial cooling systems blasting ice into the tunnels around the clock, no human could survive even 1 hour. The miners who work those shifts, they are doing something genuinely extraordinary just by being there. And yet, even that depth, 4 full kilometers of drilling, blasting, and human endurance is nothing. A rounding error, a scratch on the surface of what lies below. The deepest hole ever drilled by human beings was the Kola super deep borehole in Russia. Started in the 1970s, scientists weren't looking for gold or oil. They simply wanted to know what is actually down there. By 1989, they had drilled 12,226 meters into the Earth's crust. That's over 12 kilometers of pure scientific determination. And what they found shook everything we thought we knew. At 7 kilometers deep, where no textbook said anything could exist, they found water, actual flowing water trapped inside the rock itself, and fossilized traces of microscopic life, billions of years old, sitting in conditions that should have made survival completely impossible. Then the temperature started climbing, fast. The rock at that depth hit 180 degrees Celsius, almost double what the scientists had predicted. The drill bit didn't just wear down, it began to melt. The rock itself behaved not like stone, but like something between thick tar and soft dough, closing back around the drill almost the moment it passed through. They had no choice. They stopped, and they had only reached 1/5 of 1% of the way to the center. To understand what lies beyond that point, scientists had to get creative. They couldn't drill there, they couldn't send a probe, so instead, they listened. Every earthquake sends shock waves through the entire planet, straight through the core, bouncing off layers, bending around boundaries. By studying how those waves travel, scientists began building a picture of what the Earth looks like on the inside, like a CT scan, except the patient is a planet 12,700 kilometers wide. And what they found was a world with layers. The first layer, the crust, is where we live. Under continents, it averages 35 kilometers thick. Under the oceans, just 5 to 7. If you scaled the Earth down to the size of a chicken egg, the crust would be thinner than the eggshell. That thin, that fragile. That's what you're standing on right now. Below the crust, from 70 kilometers to nearly 2,900 kilometers down, sits the mantle. And the mantle is enormous. It makes up 80% of the entire volume of the planet. But here's what makes it strange. The mantle is not liquid. It's not solid either. It exists in a state that doesn't have a perfect name. Imagine the densest, hottest, most pressurized substance you can picture, and then imagine it flowing. Not like water, more like glass flows, technically rigid if you touch it for a second, but capable of movement over thousands of years. The mantle moves in slow, enormous loops called convection currents. Hot material rises, cool material sinks, and these movements, invisible, silent, impossibly slow, are what push entire continents across the surface of the Earth. They feed every volcano, they trigger every tectonic earthquake. The ground shaking beneath a city is just the mantle adjusting its position, shifting its weight. Without the mantle in constant motion, Earth would be geologically dead, silent, frozen, like the moon. But even the mantle is just the path. The real destination is still below. At 2,900 kilometers deep, you cross a boundary that has no name most people know, but which is arguably the most dramatic transition on the entire planet. You enter the outer core, and everything changes. The outer core is a global ocean of liquid iron and nickel, 2,200 kilometers thick, with temperatures between 4,000 and 5,000 degrees Celsius. That is comparable to the surface of the sun. And it is spinning. As the Earth rotates, this ocean of superheated metal swirls and churns, generating electric currents so massive and so sustained that they turn the entire planet into a colossal electromagnetic generator. The result is the magnetic field that wraps around the Earth like an invisible bubble stretching tens of thousands of kilometers into space. That field is the reason you are alive. Every second, the sun fires streams of charged particles at the Earth at over 1 million kilometers per hour. Without the magnetic field, those particles would strip away the atmosphere within years. The oceans would evaporate. Every living thing would be exposed to lethal radiation with nothing between it and the void of space. The magnetic field is not a feature. It is the condition for life on this planet. And it exists because deep inside the Earth, there is a churning ocean of liquid metal that has never stopped moving in 4 billion years. But here is where the story gets truly strange, because at the center of that liquid ocean, at a depth of 5,150 kilometers, something impossible is waiting. Remember the opening of this video? Something solid, impossibly hot, spinning faster than the rest of the planet. This is what we were talking about. At 5,150 kilometers deep, the pressure becomes so extreme, 3.5 million times greater than atmospheric pressure at the surface, that liquid iron can no longer remain liquid. The atoms are squeezed together so tightly, forced so close to each other by the weight of the entire planet pressing inward from every direction, that they cannot move. They lock into place. They crystallize. At 6,000 degrees Celsius, the same temperature as the surface of the sun, the inner core is a solid ball of iron and nickel, 2,400 kilometers in diameter, sitting at the center of a liquid metal ocean, inside a semi-fluid mantle, inside a thin rocky shell, inside the thin air where you're watching this video right now. And here is the detail that made scientists stop and read their instruments twice. The inner core rotates at a slightly different speed than the rest of the planet. Not the same speed, a different speed, completing roughly 1 extra rotation every few hundred years compared to the crust you're standing on. Scientists call this super rotation, and what it means is that the heart of the Earth is not fully locked to the Earth itself. It moves independently. It lives its own life, separated from everything above it by thousands of kilometers of liquid and rock. There's more. Right now, at this exact moment, the inner core is growing. Along the boundary between the liquid outer core and the solid inner core, molten iron is crystallizing, solidifying, building up in thin layers year after year. The inner core expands by roughly 1 millimeter every year. It has been doing this for billions of years. And as it does, it releases energy, thermal energy, that keeps the outer core liquid, keeps the convection currents moving in the mantle, keeps the magnetic field alive. But here is the shadow side of that process. Eventually, in a few billion years, the outer core will run out of liquid metal to crystallize. The inner core will stop growing. The convection currents will slow. The magnetic field will weaken and disappear. When that happens, the sun will finish what it started. The atmosphere will strip away. The oceans will vanish. Life on the surface of this planet is, in the very long term, entirely dependent on a process happening at a depth of 6,371 kilometers, a place no human will ever see, no instrument will ever reach, and no material known to science could survive for more than a fraction of a second. At the exact center of the Earth, gravity reaches zero. Every direction is equally down. The planet pulls at you from all sides simultaneously, canceling itself out, leaving you suspended in silence in a place of absolute equilibrium and absolute destruction at the same time. 6,371 kilometers below where you're sitting right now. The deepest borehole in history didn't even scratch 13 kilometers. That's not even 0.2% of the distance to the center. We live on the thinnest possible shell above a world we will never touch and can barely imagine. A world that is, right now, keeping us alive without asking anything in return, and will continue doing so longer than the human mind can comprehend. Now, look at the floor and think about what's beneath it. If that changed how you see the ground under your feet, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep going deeper into the hidden forces that run this planet, the next video is already waiting for you.